Alright, so this is gonna be part one to what if Tanjiro had Hamon. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Bad when the presence is greatness. Cause right now that has forsaken us. You should be honored by my lateness. That I would even show up to this fake shit. So go ahead, go nuts, go.
So this is gonna be my first Demon Slayer what if. So if you have any suggestions on how the story should go or new what ifs I should do for Demon Slayer, you could tell me down below. I am rereading the manga, so I have a fresh reminder of how the story goes. But anyways, with that being said, let's talk about Hamon. And for people who don't really know what it is and what it can do, so Hamon is from a series called JoJo. What it does is it's a breathing technique in where the user is able to fill their body with sunlight energy, so they're able to use these in different attacks and this makes it very effective against things like vampires and zombies, as well as Pillowmen from the series. So because it has the same properties as sunlight, it would be very effective against something like a demon from Demon Slayer, since they die in the sunlight. Moving on from that, there's also other ways you could use Hamon, since it's a very versatile thing. They could use it for things like just holding things together, such as keeping water in a glass of water, basically without having it spill, making things like wine solid when when people spit it out, being able to create being able to connect a bunch of leaves together to help make a glider, things like that. And you could also use Hamon through metal, I believe, so different things like that, because we've seen it with Jonathan in the first part of JoJo. So if you're really interested on that power, you can go and watch JoJo parts 1 and 2 mostly. They do use Hamon a little bit in parts 3 and 4, but not as much. Literally only a few scenes. So anyways, so let's talk about how the story will go. So basically what happens is that Tanjiro is going to learn this after, the story begins after his teacher or sensei Sakonji, basically that is his first name. It's the person with the goblin mask that you see at the beginning with the red goblin mask. I can't really pronounce his first name, or his last name I mean, so that's his first name. So bear with me, because a lot of these names I can't really pronounce too well. But anyways, back on topic. So this would be, our story would start off on the day that Sakonji basically stops training Tanjiro. So that kind of 2-year gap. So basically on the day that he stops training, this man appears in the mountains. They don't know who this person is, but he is someone that stands out a lot, because not only his clothes are different, he's very tall, as well as his features, because remember, this is a Westerner, or basically a European man in Japan, so he's gonna look a lot different. But you might be asking, how is William Zeppeli here? Well, I kind of spoiled it. This man is William Zeppeli. You might be asking yourself, why is he there? Well, I actually did a little bit of research. So JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1 actually starts in 1888, while Demon Slayer doesn't have a conclusive timeline on where it starts, but since we've seen how the world kind of looks, I did some estimations. So in Demon Slayer, it doesn't give a clear timeline like I said before, but from what I've seen, there are parts of the country of Japan where it's a lot of rural areas where there's basically no modern technology, while in the cities there's a lot, such as cars and things like that, and electricity. So, from what I understand, this should be around maybe the beginning or pretty late into the Industrial Revolution. So, for America and other parts of the world, in the Western world, I believe, the Industrial Revolution happened around the 17th century, late 17th century, while or the 1700s. I mean, while in Japan they were actually a kind of late on it, which was in the 1870s. So this should be around the same time as part 1 of JoJo, and them being able to meet up should be possible. But this would also make Tanjiro a little bit younger than Jonathan. So yeah. Anyways, so Tanjiro is just training with a sword, and he meets up with William Zeppeli. Well, I guess it's not really meeting up, but more of William Zeppeli going up to him and asking what he's doing. So he tells him that he's training, and William Zeppeli, he asks him more. He says, "Boy, you seem young, and there's no one really here, so why are you training?" And he tells him that he needs to help his sister, or he doesn't say he has to help his sister just yet, because he doesn't really want to know. He says that he's training to become a demon slayer, because demon slayers are not really a secret. At least it's only really secret in the main cities, but since he assumes that he lives out here or around here, it's kind of not really a secret. And this is when William Zeppeli basically asked Tanjiro if he could see his hands. Tanjiro is kind of confused by it, but he lets him do it. He looks at Tanjiro's hands and he sees the calluses all over them since he's been training really hard. And he says, "I see. Well, I don't really know about these vampires, but where I come from," I messed up. He says, "Well, I don't really know about these demons, but where I come from, I've faced many vampires." And Tanjiro was like, "Vampires? What are those?" And this is where Zeppeli says, "Well, vampires are creatures that used to be human, but then took on a more ghoulish appearance and then drain the blood from people, and they fear the sun." Tanjiro then says that sounds a lot like demons, but demons eat all of the flesh of a human and not just the blood. And this is when William says, "That's very interesting. Tell me, what exactly do you do on this mountain?" And Tanjiro would say, "Well, I'm really practicing my breathing, since a lot of my technique is coming from that. I'm trying to learn a breath style, and with what I do is basically go up the mountain and really train my breathing there." And this is where William is like, "That's really interesting. Would you like to learn one of my techniques?" And Tanjiro is like, What do you mean? What techniques do you have?" And this is where William says, "I have a technique called Hamon. It lets me use the power of the sun to enhance my attack and body." And Tanjiro was like, "Well, can I see this in action?" So what he does is he goes to he takes out something interesting. He takes out a glass, because he would have his stuff, like he's having his stuff like carried around, like he has a couple bags. So he would take out a glass of wine, or a glass, and then he would pour wine into it. He would then channel the Hamon through his glass, and this would create a ripple within the wine. After that, he would then turn it upside down, and then see that all the water is basically in the wine glass still and not falling out. He then takes a drink of his wine and then spits it out. It then cuts into a tree pretty deeply. And this is where Tanjiro's really impressed. He asks him how is this actually gonna, defeat demons though. Then this is where William says, if you were to touch a demon with enough, Hamon energy, this would surely start to burn them. Tanjiro says, alright, I kind of get the concept, but how do I learn to do it? So then this is where Zeppeli says, okay, here's how you do it. And he takes his pinky and he basically goes and hits him in the abdomen pretty hard, and Tanjiro gets knocked back a bit. He thinks that William was just tricking him, and then he notices that his cuts and bruises that he had before from training are slowly kind of regenerating. And he asks, what was that for? And this is what William says, I just filled your body with a lot of Hamon. You should be able to kind of feel it out from there, just how he did to Jonathan in part 1 of JoJo. So this is where Tanjiro is really focused on his breathing technique from this point forward, instead of really training his body too much. Like, he still does it, but he still tries to mostly train on his Hamon and his breathing technique. So this is what William does. He tells Tanjiro that he doesn't really have too much time on training him to do it. So what he does is he gives Tanjiro a glass of wine and wine in it, and he tells him to go up the mountain without spilling a drop, and continue doing this until you mastered it without spilling. So that's what Tanjiro is doing as he goes up there, using his breath technique using his Hamon to really keep the wine within the glass. While this is happening, William is talking to Sakonji and getting the rundown on what's happening with Tanjiro and his sister. This is where William thinks about using Hamon to heal her, but he knows that she's a demon, and if he were to do that, she would most likely burn. So he decides not to do that. After several failed attempts, Tanjiro would have eventually done it, and he would come down the mountain with most of the wine out of the glass, basically. So he'd probably be from full all the way down to probably just a third of what he had before. So Tanjiro is really struggling with both techniques. So William tells him that he should really focus on one and then perfect the one later. He tells him that he should probably focus on Hamon since he doesn't have much time. William doesn't. When he says this, he's referring to both time on Earth and as well as time in Japan. So the week would go by and, William would have to leave. So at this point, Tanjiro has a pretty good grasp on Hamon and how it works. So he starts working on his breathing technique. This is the point where he encounters Makomo, as well as Sabito, which are the two ghosts that you see in the beginning of the series. So this is where he basically has to defeat them to destroy the rock, so he could get into the final selection, which is the one condition that Sakonji actually gave Tanjiro for him to be ready. So that's what he's trying to do. And again, it takes him a very long time. In fact, it takes him just as long as it does in the anime, which is 2 years. So over those 2 years, he's really perfecting his breathing style as well as his Hamon. So in the world of Demon Slayer, every time someone uses an attack, it always shows like whatever element that they're using, but in reality they're not actually like using water or using fire or anything like that. Actually, it's just a visual effect that you see on screen or in the manga to make it look more cool, I guess. And in reality it's just like a normal technique, just named after a certain thing because it has those type of fluidity, I guess. So someone who has mastery of the water style wouldn't be able to put out a fire using his water breath style, at least from what I've seen and what I've read. So yeah, if I'm wrong, you can tell me, but I've read a couple places where it just says that. But with the addition of Hamon, Tanjiro would be actually able to do these kind of things actually with real water. So anyways, let's get back into the story. So Tanjiro would eventually defeat Makomo, and then get in this. Basically, he would split the rock or the giant boulder in two, and he'd be ready for the final selection. So, like I said, it's gonna take the same amount of time, even though he has Hamon, because he still has trouble with his breath style, because he's not really good with the breathing technique in general. So let's skip ahead to the point where Tanjiro actually gets to the final selection area. So there he would see two twins, one with white and the other with black hair. During this, they kind of explain the rules that they're going to be in this forest and where there's going to be demons. These are demons that have been collected from different demon hunters for this selection process, and they're basically stuck in the woods because they have this certain plant that grows around the mountain, so that, they grow like demon repellent plants around the mountain, so they're not able to escape. So yeah, as they're saying this, she says that all they have to do is really survive and things like that. And wouldn't you know it, a couple of demons actually come out. Two, in fact. One female, one male, I believe, and both of them look pretty normal for their size. So they go and try to rush them. So Tanjiro basically takes them out with no difficulty. He uses his fourth style, striking tides, and cuts both of their heads off. Both of them start to disintegrate because they were cut with the blade. I forgot how you pronounce it, so I'm not even gonna try. So yeah. So later on, as he's going through the forest, he smells this weird smell, this rotting smell, and then he hears a scream. He sees someone run by, and he says that there's a mutant type, or there's some type of mutant, and he doesn't really know why. So when he sees it, when Tanjiro actually sees it, he just sees this kind of grotesque demon with a bunch of arms coming around, covering the demon's face somewhat, and he has someone by the neck. They're basically dead at that point, but then the demon basically stretches out his arms even more, and he captures the guy who is running. This is when Tanjiro actually uses his second style, the water wheel, to cut off the demon's arm. After that, the demon remembers who he's going against. He sees the mask that Tanjiro has on the side of his face, and he knows that this is Sokonji's apprentice, and he has his hateful vendetta against Sokonji because he's the one who actually put him there to begin with. So he makes it his goal to kill every apprentice that he makes. And he talks about how he killed Makomo, as well as Sabito, and then they were just easy prey for him. And this gets Tanjiro kind of mad, but he then remembers that he has to keep focus, so he does something interesting. He actually uses both techniques at this point. He uses his Hamon and infuses it into his sword. But remember, this isn't a normal demon slaying sword, I believe. He uses his first style, the water surface slice, and he actually doesn't hit the head. The demon actually uses his arms to block it. But something starts to happen. Instead of it not really affecting the demon, or at least cutting off his arms, something different happens. his cuts, the arms do fall off, but something more. His arms have this weird glow around it from the cut, and then it starts to burn and burn more and more and more. And this is the point where he's basically turning into ash and he's melting at the seams, and he doesn't know what's wrong. And it turns out that the Hamon's actually getting to him. He's melting, and this is where Tanjiro basically says it's over for him, and he starts to disintegrate. And as this is happening, the demon just feels the sadness within him, and Tanjiro grabs his hand and he remembers what he used to be in his previous life, which was just a kid. And with Tanjiro kind of holding his hand, it reminds him of his older brother when he was alive, when he was a human. And Tanjiro can feel this, and he kind of sheds a tear for the demon. After that, we could skip a few hours until the point where the test is basically over. So Tanjiro wasn't able to save everyone, but he was able to save the person who was running. And when they get there, he sees only around 10 or 11 people there. So this is the point where the two twins basically say that after this, they're going to basically hand out the swords, or really let you guys choose the oars. So what happens is that one person, particularly with a interesting haircut and a scar, actually goes up and hits one of the twins on the head and basically grabs her by the hair, saying that he wants his sword now, that he doesn't care about this ceremony anymore, he just wants to get his sword and leave. This is where Tanjiro actually grabs him by the arm and tells him if you don't let go, he's gonna break your arm, or Tanjiro's gonna break his arm. This is where the kid says, well, you could try, and this is where Tanjiro successfully actually does break his arm, and the guy just grunts back because he wasn't expecting that. After that, the other twin basically says, are you done? And this is where she says, come over here to pick the ore so you can make your sword. Everyone picks their different ore that was on the table, and they say that they're gonna get their swords later on, and they also get their messenger bird. Each person gets a crow except for Zenitsu, who gets like a little robin. After that, we could skip ahead even more, and this is where Tanjiro's back home with basically Sakonji, and he sees Nezuko basically up and well, because for almost 2 years she was basically in this coma. So he's just relieved to see her walk up again, or be up and about. This is when Sakonji hugs both of them, and he's proud that Tanjiro was able to come back alive. And this is also when someone interesting comes. Someone also with a goblin mask comes, and this is the sword maker. Or yeah, one of the sword makers. He basically gives the sword to Tanjiro, and Tanjiro opens it, and if you don't know, in Demon Slayer, when you open your sword for the first time, it changes to the color of your path, right? Whether it's usually about your different breath styles, right? So this is where Tanjiro opens it, and he gets a black blade. So in the story, in the anime, you don't know what the black blade means, but in the anime, or not the anime, the manga, it's actually finished. The manga is finished, and we do know what it means. But for those anime only watchers, I'm not going to spoil it. So yeah, with that being said, actually I'll say it right now, but this is going to be the end of the video. So if you don't want to get spoiled, then leave off now, and I won't spoil it for you. But for those who are interested, you can go and stay along. So remember, if you don't want to get spoiled, leave the video. If you want to know what it is, stay tuned. So what the black blade means is the path of the sun, basically. Just how blue and red mean fire and water, this is the sun blade, basically. So yeah, it makes sense since he has Hamon and some other stuff that I won't get into since it is spoiler territory. So yeah. Anyways, so with that being said, this is gonna be in the video. If you made it to the end of the video, please comment down CS so I know that you support the channel. And if you want more videos like this, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel so you can see more as they're getting made. And if you want to see videos like these early, you can go to my Patreon, and you only need to pledge $1 a month to get access to my videos early. Or if you want, you could donate more, because I have this thing on my Patreon, and where someone from each tier will be able to get a drawing from me. At the end of the month, I'll show you guys each drawing that I did for Patreon, and you can decide whether or not you would want something like that. So anyways, let's give a shout out to the patrons over on Patreon. And starting off with our gold tier, we have Isaiah Perez, Alan James, Lyco, and the Pirate King. In our platinum tier, we have Panda Man 8. So if you want to join them and support the channel that way, you can click the link in the description, or you could go to patreon.com/ComicSansTheMan. So you can do that. Or if you don't want to, obviously you don't need to support me on Patreon. You could just watch my videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe, because that also is supporting the channel and liking the video. So with that being said, this is gonna be the video. So yeah.